Hey everyone, welcome to the CNC Side Hustle Show number 9. Here we are, number 9. Here we are, number 9, and I'm knocking things all over the place. But it's okay. We got a really cool show planned for you tonight. We've got Bob from I Like This to Make Stuff. The one and only Bob from I Like to Make Stuff is be joining us here shortly. But real quick, we've got a giveaway tonight. And the Spindle Spin. We can win some lovely prizes on the Spindle Spin over here. And we're going to be doing that towards the end of the show. And you've got to be present to win. And we'll tell you all how to enter that. But we've got some really cool prizes that you're not going to want to miss. If you're new, if this is your first time here, I'm Andy. And in 2017, I discovered CNC. And I jumped in headfirst with no experience. That led to making and selling products and building a business all about it. And from the projects that I actually made, I sold them to wholesale places like HGTV and Saturday Night Live. So now I teach people how to make and sell things. And so we started this show for that exact reason, to spark new ideas, to spark inspiration, and maybe teach you something new that you didn't know before. But my one goal, I always say this in every show, my one goal is that you are excited, you are inspired to run out into the shop and create something that you are proud of. So without further ado, let's bring on Mr. Bob from I Like to Make Stuff. Hey, Bob.
What's up, Andy?
Welcome on. Hey, so absolutely. Thanks for being here, man. So I did look up a couple stats because you've been doing this for a long time. Okay, man. Like,
I know.
we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk more about that. But
okay.
So as YouTubers, we don't like to focus too much on subscribers. I know that sounds weird, but we know it's just, it's a vanity metric. But I'm going to get into some things here. So over 3 million subscribers on YouTube, which is nothing to shake a finger at. Over 328 million views on videos.
I did not know that one.
almost a 500 million views on YouTube, which is crazy. That is over 570 videos. And that's a lot of projects. So Bob just doesn't like make simple I don't know what the most simple project you've made on YouTube, but none of them are very simple. They're very involved. So to make over 500 things like that exist, and I know you've made a lot more than that, but like not only 500 projects from small to massive, right? But to also create over 500 videos about those projects, that are now in the world to inspire people. So, man, we are happy to have you tonight. And it's going to be a good show. It's going to be a good show. So you didn't know those numbers?
I did not.
300
that I really pay attention to.
Yeah, I know. I know that about you. So, but let's get into that a little bit. And as people are joining here, what I think just kind of a random question here. What has kept you going for 12 plus years?
Yeah, something like that. I think it was 2013, maybe, when the whole thing really started. I don't know. Like, I think, early on it was easy for it to be exciting and new and not corporate. And it was, it was just a new thing to be able to do. And so that was exciting enough, I think, to keep me going for a long time. And then I think when you are self-employed for so long, the prospect of not being self-employed is, there's a lot of fear or there can be a lot of fear in being self-employed and the future and provision and all this type of stuff. But the fear of having to go back and get on somebody else's schedule and work for somebody else to do a thing. And, not wanting to do that is enough for me to figure out ways to make this work continually. I think that's one of the big things for me, honestly.
I can relate to that. So I've been at this now on YouTube for 5 years, believe it or not.
Which is a very long time.
And you have, so a little bit of backstory. Bob and I think we met in 2018, maybe 2017.
Yeah, something like that. Probably 17. Yeah.
and and that's a story for another day. It's a cool story, but it's just how it's all worked out. But 2020, February 2020, basically COVID is when I started the channel, and it's pivoted a lot since then. But I'm I'm getting to that point where the passion is wearing off,
Yeah.
and yeah, you kind of have to shift gears a little bit, right? Like what motivated you, and I think this is normal in any job or in anything in life. What motivated you before necessarily isn't what motivates you now, right? Um, and that's okay. I think that's okay.
I think it's supposed to be that way. Yeah, I think like when you look at, I don't know if you have any experience with startup culture from like a software perspective, but I was in software for a long time, and the whole like early 20 something software startup appeal is I'm going to work all the time and do this thing because it's super cool, and I'm going to throw everything, I'm going to live on a mattress, and then I'm just going to, everything else is programming or whatever, you know. And so you completely throw yourself into this, but that is not a sustainable way to live. That's a way to start something. That is a way to get the ball rolling. But we're supposed to evolve past that. We're supposed to build something to where other people can help that burden, you know, and share that load a little bit. So I think one of the dangerous things about that first 5 years or that first 3 or 4 years is like, I'm going to hustle, you know, and I'm going to keep doing this. And then like you maybe start a family, or you have some big thing that you are responsible for or whatever. And it is a lot more difficult to continue to, you know, do the startup thing.
I can attest to that.
Yeah. So you do have to find ways to make it. I mean, you have to adjust your life. You have to adjust your work, not necessarily your work ethic, but, you know, like how big of a part of your life is work? How much do you want it to be? And you have to start to adjust those things over time. And I think you continually adjust them. I mean, I'm not at retirement yet, but I can see a lot of changes in my past, and I can see a lot of changes in my future, you know, about how this works, how it continues to work over time.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, we'll get into more about that. But yeah, 12, and I know you've been making things longer than that, but 12 plus years on YouTube is an insane amount of time, like unheard of. There's not many people that have that longevity. So I definitely wanted to touch on that, and good for you to be able to adjust and keep going, right? Yeah. Well, cool. Well, let's head to our first official segment.
That's one of your best photos there. Should use that one for everything.
I should. Nice. All right. So welcome to How I'd Make It, or this week, How We Would Make It. Eric, who is running our show over here to the side, is going to show us something that someone else made. That Bob and I have never seen this before, or maybe we have, but we don't know what it is. And we're going to break down just how we approach it to make it off the top of our heads. So Eric, hit us with it.
Yeah, so I'm gonna throw a little curveball at you guys tonight. So I've got the project, which I think you guys could make, but I also want to know what you could do to improve on it as well. So here's what we got tonight.
All right, so it looks like we've got some like a kid's kitchen. That's what like a kid's play kitchen.
Yeah.
All right. We got a couple photos. Nice.
Yeah, this one just shows you that the door opens. Looks like it has some magnetic attachment there you can see.
Yeah. Interesting. All right, Bob, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
I mean, the first thing is like you could build this in what I would do. I would build this in Fusion, and I would lay it out flat very quickly, and you could CNC 100% of it with probably one bit.
Yeah,
I think. So that would be like the fastest if you were really just trying to get it out of the way. But honestly, I think actually doing all of the paneling and just the routing of the individual pockets and stuff might be faster to do by hand.
Yeah. Do you think in pocket holes or something along those lines?
Well, yeah, probably.
Yep.
Yeah, pocket holes for the construction, and then all of the detail stuff. I mean, I don't know, router template with a laser, maybe.
Yeah. So let's take it two different ways, because I think one of the cool things I love about this segment is that you literally could build this thing a multitude of different ways and get the same result, right? So yeah, the CNC route. Bob is a big Fusion user and very proficient at it. Where it would take me a day to model this in Fusion. It would take Bob probably, I don't know, what would you say, a half an hour?
Yeah, maybe 30 minutes.
Yeah. Bob does have a course, by the way, CNC, Fusion 360 for makers. Yeah, Fusion 360 for makers, which I did go through, and that's where I learned the skills. Now, that was about 3 years ago, and I don't think I've used it much since. I'm a Vectric user, strictly, and although there is great value in modeling things, parametric modeling for sure. But so you could do the CNC route, right? It is plywood construction. Lay down a flat piece of plywood, use a compression bit, use a full depth pass, and you could cut these out. It would take you longer to probably model this than it would cut it on a CNC, like all the individual parts. Yeah. But let's take this a different way. Let's say you. One thing that came to mind is 3D printing. Could you 3D print some of these details and paint them to make them look like plywood, or what do you think?
Well, you could, but I think actually by printing all the positive pieces, so like the burners and the knobs, and then maybe even some additional details on the kind of oven front, by printing those in some other color, it's going to make them pop out more. And so right now the entire thing is the same color, and you're kind of assuming that they're going to want it like this, or the person who receives it is going to have to paint all these pieces. But yeah, I mean, I would probably 3D print all those details. And if you wanted to go that route, you could take all of the little cat or bear, features, the ear pieces, the eyes, the nose, the mouth, 3D print those and stick those on. So then your cutting goes down even further, and then you've got color highlights, make it a little bit more interesting.
That could be cool too. Yeah. Because right now it's just it is a monotone, which that is a look, right? Like a style. But that could be cool. Yeah. Make those things pop. All right. Yeah. I think, I really like builds like this. There was something that we looked at last week, very similar to this, and CNC is the way to go on this, to create this. Like if you had a CNC, obviously our audience, most of them have CNCs, right? But the other thing to consider is the size of bed that you have. Like in my head, I'm thinking, I've, the 5x10 Avid. Oh, duh. I just throw a piece of plywood down. But if you have a 2x2 work area, you're going to kind of struggle depending on the size, right? You're going to have limitations that you have to work with your CNC machine.
Yeah. I mean, I think in that case, like, let's imagine that this whole thing is 25 inches wide, just too big for a 2x4 or something. You can get those profiles of the big pieces pretty easily by hand. And then, you could plop it down and have the CNC do the detail work in sections. Or like I said, you probably just like hand route those little pockets for the features and stuff pretty easily. Yeah. I wonder what the joinery is here on this. I don't remember looking at the side of it. Was it like a through tenon kind of? Oh, you can't actually see it.
Can't actually see it.
Okay, so the piece with the knobs on it, you can see that comes through.
It does through. So there's some through.
A pocket
yeah.
Through there.
Yep.
But the shelf, I don't know.
So you're looking at some fillets, because you were using a round tool in obviously 90-degree angles. They're not going to fit. So you're going to have to use some fillets in the corner. Something that I really want to get into, we can talk about this maybe more later, is the world of CNC joinery is vast. Like, it is wild. Like, someone could specialize just in CNC joinery, like how to get things so many different ways you can like different joints just with a CNC machine. It's something that intrigues me that I want to get in more into.
Yeah, I think there's an untapped market. There could be people in this market already, but I think there's an untapped market for people who build plugins or scripts or components for whatever 3D software you're using to modularize joinery. And some people are doing this, I know, but specifically the stuff that you're talking about for CNC, that is almost like it's positive and negative space has to be created for this joint to happen, right? And if you had a plugin that could, you could lay out some parameters, and then it could both do the positive and negative space on an area, on an intersection, and then you could apply that around all the corners of a box or something. Like, that would simplify the process for somebody so much, rather than you having to model a three-dimensional thing, figure out how to do the joinery, and then manually do it on all these different places. Just some sort of a, like, click this edge joint, you know. I think there's a lot of opportunity there that I don't know that anybody's taken advantage of. Maybe they have.
Yeah, I think Vectric has so Bob, I know you're generally familiar with Vectric. You're not a heavy user, but they have some gadgets. It's on and they don't it's not in depth, but they have maybe 10 gadgets on there that do things that are similar to what you're saying, but they like there's I'm trying to think off the top of my head. There's like a box maker gadget.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Like types of things like that. So I say that because I don't think like people are already making gadgets for Vectric, or Vectric's already making them. A joinery gadget I don't think wouldn't be too difficult, Yeah.
Yeah. So that sounds like the infrastructure's there for it, for sure.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, that's a fun one to learn, just to think through someone else's project and how we would approach it. So I hope you learned something there. And we're going to head to our next segment.
Maybe you should use that picture.
I was just going to ask you, should I use that picture instead?
Yeah.
Every thumbnail has my finger up my nose.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, in this segment called Pick Your Niche, we're doing a little bit of a different take on it than we typically have done in the past. And there's this idea of niching down. That's just one idea. But there's also an idea where there's a trap, kind of people try to appeal to everybody, right? But that's also, we also think about like generalist versus specialist. And you can think about a generalist being trying to appeal to everybody, and a specialist, really niching down. So Bob has literally, I said this in the pre-show, Bob, have you used every tool under the sun? I
cannot confidently say yes.
But you've used a lot of tools.
I've used a lot of tools.
So we're a group of people that mainly the audience is, it's obviously this is called the CNC Side Hustle Show, but with CNC routers, CNC lasers is, I would say, the majority of our users. And so I just want to have a conversation, kind of a fireside chat about how can we, what are some ways where, one, how do you use CNC in your shop, or how have you in the past, CNC lasers, CNC routers? And how can we just expand our abilities, but how can we incorporate different techniques into our projects, into CNC projects? Is there anything that comes to mind, like as far as some easy cross technique?
Well, I don't know about technique, but I do think that one thing, I mean, you've heard that everything's a hammer, right? If you decide everything is a hammer, then everything is a hammer. If you decide that everything is CNCable, then everything is CNCable. And if it's not, then you're not going to try to do it, probably. I think that's the tendency. And the same could be said for 3D printing. Like, that's no bust on CNC.
Yep.
When you have a skill set and you only look for projects that fit within that skill set, then I think you're always going to be limited just because you're not ever trying something outside of the scope of what you already know. So I would say, if anything, maybe intentionally to broaden your skill set, to intentionally go look for something that cannot be done with a CNC. And yes, probably everything could be done with the CNC, but like where it's impractical to do, right? And so, look at something with so many pieces that it's impractical to make it with a CNC, because you would never be able to get them all right. You would never be able to keep all the pieces together long enough to assemble the thing or whatever. And maybe that's a 3D printing project. Or maybe it's a laser cut project that you assemble in a different way than you would if it were CNC'd. My point is, if you are surrounded by your tools and you only do things that you are sure you can accomplish with the tool set that you have, you're missing out on a huge number of things that can add to your tool set. The more tools you have, the more, not physical tools, the more skills you have, the more things you can do. And so, like, one of my personal goals for this entire 1,000 years I've been doing this is I don't want anything to stand in the way of me being able to make something other than my skill. I don't want to be afraid of it. I don't want to not have a knowledge of a tool set to be able to do it. I don't want to be, stuck in my shop by myself to where I'm not part of a community where I can get help with something. There's all these things I don't want to do in the service of, I want to be able to make anything, anytime. That's not entirely practical, but that's the goal, right?
Yeah.
So that has forced me to learn 3D printing stuff. Way more about it than I knew just a few years ago. That has forced me to learn how to do electronics. That has forced me to learn how to use a CNC and a laser and a router and a chisel and, all these things that are not the natural thing I would grab to do a thing. But by learning those, it's just like one more thing on the belt, right? And so I've been trying to build my utility belt for a long time, and I think that's with the whole generalist specialist thing, I'm a generalist in almost every way that you can imagine. And I think, like with politics, everybody thinks they're right. The way that they think and the way that they live is the right way. But I've learned over time that I think the generalist approach is the way to start. I think being a specialist in something is actually really smart if you have a generalist approach to things. It's fine to be able to fix a car as long as you can also learn how to plant a plant and keep it alive. Like, those are two very different skill sets. But if you start from a generalist perspective and you can survive and you can make the things that you want to have, then diving deep on something and being really, really good at it to where you can be valuable to other people because of that niche skill set, that makes a lot of sense, That was a long thing that was disconnected.
No, it's great. That's great. It's great. Hey, just a reminder, any questions that you have, we've got Paul in the background queuing them up for our rapid fire Q&A. That's going to be towards the end of the show. So we're not ignoring your questions. Drop them in the chat and we will answer them rapid fire style at the end of the show.
I talk too much for rapid fire, man. You're going to have to
cut you off. So something I thought of when you were talking about that was, and I think it's great. I think doing things like building that belt, like you said, building another tool, another skill, right? So you're basically reducing your limitations. But how do you get to a point like someone that is just getting into this and is intimidated about trying something new, right? Like, I think culturally we live in a culture that we typically don't try something unless we're good at it. And so how do you break through those barriers, or what advice would you have to someone that is I don't know, afraid of screwing up or wasting material or looking dumb?
I think a lot of people have asked me over the years, like, about making YouTube videos, kind of the same kind of question, like, how do you get started making YouTube videos? And like, I don't know what I look like on camera or how I sound or whatever. And I think the same principle that I tell them applies. Make the first one with the intention of never releasing it. I may have even told you this. I don't know.
You did. Did I listen? No. But
make the first video knowing that nobody's ever going to
Yeah.
see it, because then the pressure's gone. You don't have to do it well. What you're doing is you're learning what you don't know, so that the second one can be like, oh, I forgot to turn the mic on the first time, so I'm going to turn the mic on this time, and then it's going to be better because you can hear what I'm saying. Same kind of thing with making stuff. Make the first one with the intention of putting it in the fire pit. And if it goes in the fire pit, then it doesn't matter how bad it is, but you've got the first one under the belt. It's gone. Then you can move on to starting to get better at something or adding whatever skill you need. And that's what I tell people, because it removes the pressure of having to do it right or having to finish it. You know, I mean, you don't even have to finish these things. Just
So is that something that you do or you found yourself doing over the years? Like when you're brand new to something, are you practicing before you make a project for camera?
no.
Okay.
I should, but
You
part of
should.
my thing is just I show mistakes. I show
Yeah.
that
You're showing the progress.
I make it up as I
process.
go along a lot of times, and so I think that has been, people have told me that has been helpful for them to see somebody who kind of maybe looks like they should know what they're doing, doesn't actually know what they're doing, and just go for it, and then it doesn't burn down the house, and like, oh, well, that wasn't so bad, you know, like maybe so that's kind of part of my thing. But it's part of the job that I have. If you're just trying to learn a skill for your own self, or you're trying to make a video because you want to share something, the stakes are different, right? Like
Yes.
the intent and the output is all different than what I'm doing. So
Yeah, let's talk. I think that leads perfectly into my kind of the next thought I had was, so whether you're making a okay, the output is typically for somebody or for something, for somebody to consume, enjoy, whether that's a video or whether that's a table or whether it doesn't matter what it is, right? We're creating something, and it can be just for us to enjoy. But in this case, like we're creating products for someone to consume. You've made everything, literally. How do you come up with project ideas that resonate with people and that people actually care about?
I don't. So I tried to, and I think tried early on, and for a long time I've always tried to do the stuff that I need personally for my house or for, just things that I like. Although these helmets, I don't need that for my house, but I like that.
But you
so
like it, yeah.
So I've tried to do that, but early on, there was this kind of pressure to like, how do I generalize this thing so that at least it's kind of useful for somebody else? And that works for furniture sometimes, and it works for props sometimes. But the further I got into trying to do that, it was like this unnecessary stress of, it's kind of like, it's like giving half of your opinion on something. It's not really your opinion. It's not really for you. It's half for you. It's half for somebody else.
Did you find it sucks the life out of you?
It did, and it made the end product not really what I wanted.
Yep.
Because it wasn't the piece of furniture that I actually wanted. It was half the piece of furniture that I wanted because I was
it's
trying
kind
to
of like
generalize.
Yeah, you're by trying to appease, in my experience, trying to appease, like to make the project that you want and for someone else to enjoy it. It's nearly impossible, right?
Yeah.
And you accomplish neither by trying to accomplish both.
Right.
Yeah.
So I've moved away from that for myself and try now to, a lot of my videos these days are about the process and less about the end result. I found that I really enjoy the exploration of how to get something done, thinking and talking about the path to get to the thing, knowing full well that nobody's going to make whatever it is I'm making that week. Like, this little, this thing, this was really cool. And I learned a lot from doing this. Nobody else is going to make this. And that's okay, because I found that people actually like to see somebody else think through problems. And so a lot of the things I do these days are not what you just said. They are more real-time problem solving and getting to some sort of a thing that is usable for the problems that I set out at the beginning. Now, on occasion, there are still things that I do that Like I made a bed a couple weeks ago. We needed a new bed. So I made this bed with my design style, with the thing that I wanted it to be. And then I said, what can I change about this that's still me? I've finished the whole thing and the model. And I said, what can I change about this to make it a little bit broader, but not change what I actually created? And turns out, like, I think it's actually pretty good. Somebody else might want this bed. So we just like made some plans of the bed, and we've sold a bunch of plans of that bed.
Cool.
And I think if I had started at the beginning of it and been like, how do I make a bed that everybody's going to like? It just would have been a bed that nobody liked. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think I hear that a lot from people with CNC that are trying to make and sell things. It's like they start with that thought of what can I make to sell?
Yeah.
And like, what do other people want? And although when you're selling physical products, like that is a good question to ask. What problem can I solve for other people? But that's not the question to ask when you're first starting. And because that's a really hard question to answer with no experience. What I tell people is start by making things that you like. Forget about all this pressure of selling. We've already talked about that, but forget about this pressure of like, I've got to like I got to fit it into a box. So for someone else to like it. Right. I think every business, most businesses, most successful businesses started by solving a problem like for themselves, or for something that they thought was cool. I mean, you look at the biggest companies in the world. Is like the CEO or the founder was like, I think this should exist in the world, and I want it to exist in the world because I think it's cool. Like that's the initial thought, right? And then that resonates with people because other people think that as well. And I think it's a weird thing. Like I think it's a weird thing. I think you're exactly right, though. Every time I try to create something that I think someone like, when I try to specifically videos, welcome to the life of a YouTuber. When I try to create a video and fit it into a box and accomplish a lot of things with one video, and I like it, it serves me, and it also people like it, the video does horrible, absolutely horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think with the CNC, like a beginner CNC person trying to figure out what to make, it's easy to look at, I don't want to say low-hanging fruit, but it's easy to look at the common problems that you think people have and try to make a solution for them, when ultimately what you're doing is the same thing that they could get at Walmart. And I'm talking about like, soap dishes and like utilitarian,
Cutting
everybody
boards.
has this.
No
Yeah, cutting
offense.
boards, same kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that is certainly one way to go, but you're competing with mass market, low revenue, a lot of stores. You're competing with almost an insurmountable thing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Whereas, if you make one creative piece that sells for 10 times what those soap dishes or whatever sell for, you can sell one of them.
Yep.
And then if you find people have an appetite for that one of them, then you're going to find people that have an appetite for 10 of them or 100 of them. And they're still 10x the price of what that low-hanging fruit would be. So I think it's easy to just get in and like try to make a thing that's going to move and sell, and sell quantity and stuff. But I do think there is something to be said for finding something that is uniquely you, because what is uniquely you is not actually unique. It's just you. You will find other people who also like that same thing. I have found so many people who are generally my age and generally like Star Wars and Lego and all these different things that I like. And so that doesn't mean everybody's going to, but I have found enough people there that are interested in what I'm doing, that can support what I'm doing, and those are the people that I can reach out to if I have a new thing that's associated with those feelings and those interests and stuff. So I'm not competing with like
right
every YouTuber ever.
Yeah. So Bob and I have been friends for quite a while. We live in the same general area, and we've had the privilege of eating lunch together every so often. And one of the stories I remember you telling me was the first craft fair that you attended. Do you remember this?
I don't remember the story.
Okay, but like you used to live in Georgia, and you made a bunch of stuff. And I remember, and maybe this was a dream. You can tell me if I'm wrong.
No,
but I remember
the story now.
Do you remember it now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you tell people that story, and just in a way of like when you first started? And I don't know the timing of that in your making journey, but if you don't mind telling that story, I think it would resonate with people and what you learned from that, and how it kind of what it taught you.
Well, if it's the same story, I could be wrong, but okay. I was working with some people making some furniture and some like home goods type stuff for this one project, and they were associated with, I think it was West Elm. Was it West Elm? I don't remember. A nice store. And they were like, we're going to have this maker's market thing where you can come set up a booth in the store and you can sell your stuff along, and like you can be there for the night and you can sell alongside these like other really nice things. So I spent weeks making, trays and cutting boards and lamps and clocks and all this crazy stuff. Didn't sell a single thing. I lost money driving from Savannah to Atlanta, setting all this stuff up, not selling a single thing, putting it all back in, and taking it back to Savannah. And it was terrible, but it told me, like, this is not how I'm going to make my money making stuff. Like, I just knew that was not the way that it was going to be for me, but I know that works for some people, but I just... Yeah. And I think part of that was I made stuff that I thought was really cool, and I put it in a place where I thought other people would think it was cool, and just didn't match. There was no mesh between, the aesthetic and the people, and it just didn't match.
Yeah, I think in knowing you and the stuff the stuff you made wasn't junk. I'm sure it was very nice stuff, and I think it's a perfect example of. I hear this all the time, and this isn't like don't try craft fairs or don't try markets. But there's a lot of prep that goes in ahead of time for an unknown return. But I mean, that's sales in general. I mean, that's how it is when we make YouTube videos. But at the beginning, I think I always tell people to approach like expect to lose money, right? And because then the first one I seriously think if you would have. I mean, you learned that it wasn't the way that you wanted to go. But if you would have done a second one or a third one or a fourth one, you would have got better and better and better, right? Like you would have taken what you've learned and applied it. If that was what you were setting out to be successful with.
And it wasn't.
Yeah, it wasn't.
and I think part of it, honestly, like it was disappointing to not sell stuff in that, but part of it was, I have a bunch of new information now. I don't like to make 10 of the same thing, personally. And I don't like to, drive really far and hope that I'm in the right place with the right people at the right time. And so it was really, the learning experience was far more valuable than the money would have been if I had sold it. Because if I'd sold all that stuff, I would have been like, oh, well, I guess I have to do this again. And then I would have been like, I gotta make 10 more of those things? Like, it wasn't me. So I learned a whole lot. And I think failure and missing, can teach you as much as winning and not failure.
Yeah, and so I 100% agree with that. I think we all hear that, right? Like we learn more from our failures than we do our wins. So I think, well, kind of wrapping up this segment here, picking our niche. What are just kind of your last words to someone that's struggling with that question? What do I make? They're just kind of overwhelmed, and they see all these things that they want to do, but they're just wrestling with that question. What do I make?
So, a similar kind of repetitive story that I've given people when they've asked me like what they should make is I tell people to go around their house and look for a problem to solve in their own home, and then solve that problem for them. because you are going to be motivated to solve a problem for yourself more than you will be for anybody. So walk around your house, you look in that corner and you go, man, I really wish I had a table in that corner so that I could put my stuff on that table. Make it for that corner. Make yourself a table, because it's immediately gratifying. It's useful, it's productive, and you have now a new experience. And so if you do that, like, you're not the only person that likes tables, right? And so if you can do that, you've got something under your belt, you've got the files, you've got the process for this thing. Now it's just a matter of finding other people that have a similar need, something that you can adjust that project or that thing towards. I think trying to look at everybody else and the problems that they have is probably the wrong approach, because you don't know the problems that they have. You know the problems that you have. And we all have a lot more in common than we think we do. So solve one for yourself, and then look for people with that same problem. That would be my advice.
Yeah, I think it's great. So solve the problem for yourself. And I think another, I would go one step further, is just take some pictures and share them with people. Like, look what I made. And it doesn't even have to be like posted on social media. You don't have to worry about using trending music or Bob's favorite TikTok dances. You have to let other people know, right? There is an aspect there of like, you solve a problem for yourself and be proud of that, and share it, talk about it with other people. And because I think that's where a lot of my first like commission builds came from, is I did that, Bob, what you're saying is I built something for me, for my wife. She has a lot of ideas that she wants, and I would build it. And then she would share it with her friends or share it on Facebook or something like that. And then people are like, oh, can you do that for me? I would like that, but I would like it this way. Like, sure, why not?
Yeah. I think word of mouth. I mean, I've had several businesses over my life, and we've done a little bit of marketing, but most of it is word of mouth, because that is the best marketing. Even if it's less, that's the best marketing you can have. So if you can't find a problem for yourself to solve, family members, somebody that, you just get them to pay for the material or whatever, if they love it, they're going to tell everybody they know about it. And then you've got people who don't know that they only paid for materials. They're going to come to you and ask for one too. And then you can set your price and you can start, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, for sure. Well, cool. Well, we'll put our the stamp here on the pick your niche. But I need to move on before we move on to our rapid fire. Get in any questions drop them in the chat. We'll answer them in a second. But before we go there, we need to introduce the Spindle Spin. All right, I'm introducing it myself. And so we're going to go over the details. So to enter, you're going to put hashtag AndyBirdBuilds in the chat, and that will automatically enter you into the Spindle Spin. And what the Spindle Spin is we will randomly draw on screen someone's name here. You must be present to win, and that person gets one spin on the Spindle Spin. And so we've got some awesome prizes here. We've got free project files. We've got free project file where everyone wins. I did that last week and really screwed up my team. I'm sorry if you got the wrong file, but you actually got two files because the way we fixed it. So you're welcome. We've got a free router bit. We've got a 30-minute call with me. We can talk about making business, anything you want. But we've also got a loser. So you win nothing. That Bob raises his hand. That's Bob's spot right there. And then the biggest prize we've got here is access to the CNC Side Hustle course. So you can win $500 in the CNC Side Hustle course value, or you can win nothing, and that's the way we do it here. Or someone can win everything.
Can I offer a suggestion?
Why not?
Break your show. If somebody hits the loser, excuse me. If somebody hits the loser, I'll give them 50% off Fusion for Makers.
There you go. All right. We can do that. Thank you, Bob.
Sure.
Because Bob's a loser.
That's me.
Bob, I figured you'd like this project right here. You like this one? Like this project?
Yes,
Bob?
I do. I saw that as soon as I logged on. Yes.
Yeah. I made that just for you. No, it's actually here every week. I made this a while ago. Kind of cool.
That's awesome.
Bob, you made a real. Do you still have R2D2?
Of course I do. What would I get rid of R2D2?
You sell him. Bob made an R2D2 from absolute scratch. How long did that take you?
About 2.5 years.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. Was that before the Carmen Gia project?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
I remember this project, but is he setting? Where's R2D2 sit these days?
Right outside that wall, right there.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Nice.
Right next to the couch. For a while, he was in our living room, and it was fine, but I had to move him.
Just sitting in the corner.
Yeah.
Looking. So cool. But yeah, the Spindle Spin. So enter hashtag AndyBirdBuilds in the chat, and enter hashtag AndyBirdBuilds in the chat to enter, and we're gonna randomly pick somebody. And you have until the end of our next segment to get those in. So make sure you enter, stick around because you must be present to win. And yeah, we'll head to rapid fire. All right, here we are in rapid fire questions. That's really a really intimidating intro. It always gets me like, whoa, like I'm on the hot seat. But Bob is on the hot seat tonight. So, Bob, I hope you're nervous.
I am.
But we need more questions. I know you've got more questions out here. We've got Bob here. This is your chance to ask Bob, who has literally made lightsabers and secret rooms. And the first project I ever saw, Bob, is actually a cool story. Bob, do you remember what project this is that I'm going to say?
I don't. No.
First project I ever saw of Bob's was the concrete and epoxy end table.
Oh, okay.
This was like 10 years ago, Bob.
That was when I was in Savannah. Wow.
But that's the first video I saw of yours.
Gotcha.
And that's how I found out through a mutual friend that we lived in the same area.
Yeah.
And I was like, no way. Like, there's no way. Like, this guy? He's like, yeah. So... long story short there. That's the first project I ever saw. Yeah, you've literally made R2D2. What else?
I mean, I can list stuff if you want me to. It's a lot.
Yeah.
I made a wooden katana. That was a big one.
I remember that one. Yep. Out of hardwood flooring.
Out of hardwood flooring.
Yep.
I mean, we've made a couple of secret rooms, tons of furniture.
You've renovated your entire house.
Yeah, I'm in the last 2 rooms of the house.
Yeah.
Tree houses and I don't know, lots of stuff.
Doors,
climbing walls.
Yeah. One more thing, Bob, that I want to get in here. Make sure I get in here before people pepper you with questions. Okay, so can you remember your first CNC machine?
Yeah, it was the Shapeoko 2.
The Shapeoko 2. And that was, so I think you have a video of this, and it was when you're in Savannah, and it has the Dremel. The Dremel tool is they used as like the spindle.
It was a knockoff Dremel. It wasn't even a real Dremel. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's super cool. The Shapeoko 2.
So I met Ed Ford
Yep.
at an event. I don't even remember when that was. And I think it was before the Shapeoko 2 was even out or something. And so I'm not saying I was the first, but I was one of the first people on YouTube, the first woodworker type people to get a hold of one of these machines. And I don't even remember the process of getting it. But I think I was one of the first videos to have a CNC machine. And like I talked to Jimmy and David that I do the podcast with, they both like have talked about several times like, oh, I remember seeing a CNC for the first time from a woodworking channel, and it was you with that tiny little thing and the Dremel sticking out of the top. Yeah.
That's awesome. And now they're on the Shapeoko 5. Technically, it's Shapeoko 5 Pro, which is probably technically, I don't know why they put the Pro name on it, but I started with the Shapeoko 3. And I remember when I told you I got that, we were standing in the line at Qdoba. We had this thing. We weren't actually eating together, but we had this thing for a while. We would end up at the same lunch places.
Yeah.
And
and then we just started doing it on purpose.
So then we started doing it on purpose. Yeah. And so, but I remember, and you told Josh, you're like, yeah, Andy just got a CNC. I remember that. That was in like 2018.
Yeah.
Yeah, 7 years ago. So
crazy.
All right. So let's start with the questions. It looks like we've got a fair amount here. Bob, I'm gonna let you take the lead on this. They're gonna come up on the screen. I can read them, give you some time to prepare your answer, and then I'll let you answer.
Yeah, so we got some back and forth questions, some for Andy, some for Bob. So we'll start out with one for Bob.
All right. David P. says, I'm not a designer at all, but I'm working with Tinkercad. I've played around with Fusion and Shaper 3D. Shaper 3D is attractive because of the price. Do you feel like Fusion is worth the cost?
Well, so the thing is with Fusion and the cost is that people seem to think that it's not free, but it is free. There's a personal license to Fusion, and a few years ago they added some limitations to that personal license. It used to just be like, as long as you're using it personally, it's no big deal. They added some limitations, which seemed like a big deal to a lot of people at the time, but they're actually not. And so you can use Fusion fully featured for free. And so from that perspective, yeah, I think it's worth the cost because its capability is really far past a lot of other pieces of software. Now, that's all dependent on what you're going to do with it. Yeah. If Shaper or Tinkercad even does what you need and you already know it, like, I don't know if it's worth the learning curve. If you're starting with a 3D software from the ground up for the first time, I mean, I advise people to use Fusion, the free license of Fusion, just because it is so capable in so many different things. But yeah, I mean, that's a subjective thing. It's kind of hard to say whether it's worth actually paying for the subscription part of it, but the free one, I think it's worth it.
Is that what you, Bob, are you using basically the free one?
Well, I pay for it because, I mean, I use it for my job. And,
yeah, that's true. That's true. It's not personal anymore.
Yeah, it's not personal. But when we do the course, I installed a separate version of Fusion that is the personal free license. And so everything in the course is me using the free version to show how capable it is. And we talk about the limitations, where they are and stuff.
Cool. All right. All right. Johnny Gardner. I'll take this one, Bob. What's your thoughts on an aftermarket tool changer like Rapid Change? Okay, so I'm going to preface what I say with I don't have any experience with tool changers or Rapid Change, so take this with a grain of salt. But really, where I just don't find them necessary. I think where tool changers really exceed is in production settings. And I could be wrong. Like I said, I've never tried something like this. Some people swear by them, but the complexity of CNC machines and everything that's going on, I just think that adding another thing, especially as a beginner, is just not necessary. Like, you just don't, it doesn't do anything, I mean, other than change your tool automatically. But yeah, that's just kind of my thoughts off the top of my head.
I have a thought there as well.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I've never used a tool changer. I've always wanted one. But I think one of the holdups for me using CNC more often is actually the fact that I don't have a tool changer.
Really?
Okay. Yeah. I think if I had a machine that had a tool changer that was set up and it wasn't, in the way of me doing that, I think being able to create a file with more types of tool paths at the same time or in the same job, I think would actually probably draw me to it a little bit more. I think the limitation or the hassle of changing tools manually and then probably screwing something up in that process, that stops me from using the CNC more than I do.
Okay. So. That's a good, that's a good good angle. That could be true for a lot of people.
This one's obviously for Bob.
No.
So Doug
I
asked, does Bob miss living in Georgia?
And the answer is no. No. I mean, Georgia was great. It was fine. I lived there for 20 something years. But I don't miss it. I miss people, but
Yeah.
no. That's it.
That was the easiest one, Bob.
Yeah.
Ron has a question for Bob here. Bob, how do you prevent bleed through when using epoxy?
Ooh. In what context? I wonder what we're talking about there. I've not done a whole lot of epoxy stuff, especially in wood, and I think that's probably where you would see it, where it comes through in the fibers and stuff. I think the way, if I'm understanding that correctly, probably the way that I would get around that is to seal. So you make a pocket, and then you seal that pocket with a lacquer or something to fill up the gaps, fill up the pores with something, and then do epoxy within that, and then there's no gap for it to seep into, if I'm understanding the question.
Yeah, that's how I would take it. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Kevin says, Bob, this is for you. Where, who, or what has been your biggest inspiration and why?
Ooh, that is a big question.
All right, just one. First one that comes to mind. Who's your biggest inspiration?
Oh, I don't even know a person. I think, oh my gosh. I don't know how to answer that. That's huge. My grandfather and my dad, both huge inspirations from many perspectives, both from like making things, from being resilient and being people who just can jump in and fix whatever's going on. I think probably the two of them equally, cool. And they both have been a huge part of my life. So I'd say that's
great.
Yeah. And Star Wars, I mean, I joke, but at the same time, like my first impulse was to say there have been several things like Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back specifically, and Tron and Transformers, the stuff of my childhood actually inspires me more than just the visual and the toys and stuff.
Yeah.
There's a certain aesthetic and a certain dedication to being a thing that all of those old sci-fi they like Tron, it dedicated itself to being a certain thing and didn't try to be a bunch of other stuff. And man, it had a huge impact on the way I think about how things should look, or I don't know, those movies.
Just kind of your aesthetic.
Yeah.
That's cool. All right, Justin asked here. My question is, how do you start a woodworking business with 2 kids under the age of 5 and 40 hours a week? It's a struggle. Any advice on time management or how to make it happen is appreciated.
You want to take this one, or you want me to take this one?
I'll let you take it.
Okay, so a few things. First, people talk about home life balance, or like work-life balance.
Yep.
And I think that is a falsehood, and I think it's something that people want to be. They want to find a balance, and you and I have talked about this many times, but I don't think that's true. I don't think that there is a perfect 40-60% of like, I got to live with my family and I got to do the work, this thing. I think it's balancing. I think it's a balancing act, and it's a constant change. And with kids under 5, the swing will be, they need a lot of you as Justin, as dad. They need you. And in a couple of years, they're going to need you less. And then a few years, they're going to need you less, except on some days when they need you a whole lot. The point is balancing, is to be where you are needed fully. Sometimes your kids will not need you around, and that's when you work. Sometimes you have to work to pay the bills, and that's when your kids just don't get to see you for that one night or whatever. So it is a struggle, and there's no way around that. But I think trying to find the perfect balance is actually more problematic than just trying to be aware of what needs you this very minute and being willing to be where you're needed in spite of other stuff.
Yeah, it is very difficult. It's a very difficult thing. I think I'm crazy. I wish Bob would have told me, Andy, you're crazy, which he has. I just said, I guess I wish I would.
Did.
I wish I would have listened. No, so I have 2 kids under 5. I have a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old. and it's hard. It is hard to be self-employed, and I know everybody has it hard. I'm not saying I have it harder than anybody else, but it is hard to. It's a hard time of life where your time is, you feel like you're being pulled in a lot of different directions, and you want to. On one hand, you want to provide for your family. On another hand, you want to be there for your family, emotionally, physically, and you really just have to sit down and what is the priority at the time, and let everything else go. And Bob, I think that has helped. Bob, you have kids that are older now.
I had 4 under 5 when I was starting.
Oh my goodness! I'm not even, guys. I don't have it hard.
No, and I'm not saying that like, oh yeah, I had 4.
No,
I don't mean
no,
that at all.
I know.
I just mean that I've been in that same place of trying to start a thing and having.
Bob actually told me before I had my second that the second was the worst. Like not the child, but like adding a second child was like, you think everything just doubles, but it doesn't. And I can admit to that. But anyways, keep up. Like, you got this. Just know that it is difficult, and what you're trying to do is difficult, and embrace that. Ebbs and flows. Some days are better than others, and I would say also get on the same page as your wife. I know we could talk about this question for a long time, but get on the same page as your wife, because it would I can speak from it would literally be impossible for me to do Andy Bird Builds, my passion to run a business, without my wife being behind me 110%.
Totally agree.
It just wouldn't work. So, all right. Joe asked Bob, if you had the chance, what would you want to do differently, or maybe a new path in your career?
Ooh, man. I think I'm looking at like the next several years and trying to figure out this question already. I think I would like to start making I've always made stuff for myself, mostly, and because that's easy. I'm like a pretty decent client, but I think I want to start making over the top, unique things for other people. I've got a friend here who owns a bunch of property and a bunch of businesses, and he does a good job of starting companies with people who have a great idea. And so I'm looking, and I've already worked with him a little bit, but I'm trying to find more opportunities to, like, you need a statue that's shaped like this and made out of this crazy material? Like, I'm your guy. Because it sounds like a cool challenge.
Yeah.
And it's something that is local. I'm beginning to get more interested in, like, how do I invest locally in something in things that people here can use, can enjoy, can find value in and stuff, and not just put things out to the internet, So I think those are a couple of things that I'm trying to look at for the next 10 years, 15 years, whatever, and see how I can move towards those.
Love it.
Yeah.
Okay, here's a question for Andy, I'm guessing.
All right, Spencer asks, what would you suggest for someone under 18 to start a CNC side hustle? I would suggest, we kind of touched on this a little bit, but I would suggest take the focus off the side hustle. Yes, that is your goal. But start by making things for yourself, things that you're interested in, things that you're inspired by. Start there. Take pictures of them. Build a portfolio out. I always tell people, pick a platform. I don't care where you pick. Instagram is a very visual platform. So, and don't even worry about views. Don't worry about likes. Don't worry about anything. But build a kind of in the old days, how you'd have a portfolio of work, an actual like portfolio, and just start experimenting. You don't have any pressure to pay the bills, I hope. And so now's the time to explore and really chase, kind of what Bob's hammered home is chase, find those inspirations and find what inspires you, and really, Yeah, I think and follow that. Bob, would you give any different advice?
No, I don't think so. Maybe try a 3D printer too.
There you go.
And I
Yeah.
only say that because the barrier to entry, I think, is a little bit lower cost-wise.
Yeah.
And if you're looking at a side hustle, it's something that maybe requires less infrastructure.
There you go. Yeah.
Maybe cheaper to get into.
Or even a laser. A laser. But yeah, for sure. I think those skills translate well too. Like they're different, but there's some similarities as well.
Yeah.
All right, Bob, we've got 4 more questions.
Okay. Favorite go-to lunch? Well, Andy and I end up going to Qdoba.
Yep.
Or Culver's.
Yep. We've mixed it up the last couple times.
That's true.
We went to Five Guys.
Oh, wait, that's right. Five Guys. Yeah.
Yeah.
Five Guys might be my favorite one. But
yeah. Nice. Rebuild Repurpose asks, do you do 3D carving, and what's your favorite category for 3D carving? Bob, have you done any? We'll take this a couple different ways. I've done some 3D like relief CNC projects, and I don't have a favorite. I really do like topographical maps. I think those are just so cool to be able to take some data of a real place, some elevation data, and like carve it into wood is just mesmerizing to me. It's just mind blowing.
Those are really awesome.
Yeah. Bob, you take the other side of this. Have you done any 3D like sculpture carving with like a grinding disc or anything like that?
I mean, I've done a little bit of, kind of like, flap disc and like, what's the name of the tool? I can't think of it.
Arbortech?
It's on a grinder. Yeah, the Arbortech thing.
Yeah.
I can't think of what it's called. But I've done a little bit of that, but I've done it from the perspective of like intentionally rough, not trying to like actually carve a nice looking thing, because I think that would take a long time to learn how to do that well. But adding texture to something that otherwise would just be flat and kind of boring. I made some trivets one time in like a little serving bowl. And just adding, it was walnut, and so just adding that kind of like 3D surface to it made it look so much nicer and so much more intentional than just like, it's a flat thing where you set other flat things on it, Yep. So but that's really about the only experience I have with it. I've never done a CNC 3D cut, like a topographical type cut. I've always been fascinated by those. One thing I would like to do someday is to build a significant stack of veneers, like a skateboard, but a bunch of them, and really just go all out in the different color of those, and then carve some topographical place of some place special or something out of that, because I think that'd be a really dynamic looking, rather than just a single wood. That looks cool too. But
yeah, that could be cool. You'd have to get like a special order CNC router bit, get like an 8-inch bit. Just to get the length, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Or maybe you do it in 2 stacks. You do like the top of the and the bottom, and then I don't know,
kind of glue them together. Yeah, something like that. Cool. All right, John asks, I use a CNC router and a diode laser. I'm looking into 3D. What are some 3D printers you would recommend for a new user to start with?
So it kind of depends. For me, it depends on whether you want the printer itself to be a project or a tool. So most people, they go, $100 3D printer, sure, that sounds like a good place to start. That's fine. That's like buying a $100 car. You're going to have to work on it a lot to make it run. And if that's your thing, then go for it. I think of 3D printers as tools, and if I have to fight them to do their job, then it's a piece of junk to me personally. So I would ignore the really, really inexpensive, like kind of the ones at Best Buy and stuff like that. Not that they're bad printers, but it's going to be a lot of work to get baseline results out of it. I always tell everybody the Bamboo stuff is great, and Prusa. They are 2 companies that go above and beyond to make printers work well, and you not have to fight the printer for it to do its job. And I I think across all of their products. So even if you go with the cheapest bamboo, it's going to be significantly better than like the cheapest of, these other brands that are less known and stuff.
Yeah, the A1 Mini, the bamboo A1 Mini is like around $300.
Yeah, which is pretty amazing.
It's really hard to beat that. Yeah.
Now, I think personally my favorite, just in general, the Prusa lineup of printers, I think every printer that they sell, and they're great, and I love them all, and like, I would take any of them over the best printer of another brand. And that's just my opinion, but I think you cannot go wrong with any of their printers because I've used them all.
Cool. What do we got next here? We got this Ginger.
Hey, Justin.
The Ginger Workshop says, is there anything specific you miss about your old shop?
So my old shop was about the size of this room. So no, there's nothing specific I miss about my old shop. The only thing I miss about it was just that point in life, that time in the business, and that I had a really small space, and I had to figure out how to make it work. Everything I wanted to do, I had to figure out how to make it work in that small space. And so, it was kind of cool challenges of like splitting a garage into 2 rooms, one that could be a shop and one that could be an office, and having to kind of figure out how to make everything mobile and, fit cameras around. One thing that was really cool that I did in that shop that I do kind of miss this. I used to live stream from that shop on Twitch, and I made a keypad that was on the workbench, and I had multiple webcams around, and I made this whole scenario so I could hit a button and it would switch cameras in OBS. So I had this like multicam studio thing set up out of janky equipment and like the cheapest cameras and an Arduino with a number pad on it. But like I could do live streaming and look up at this screen and be working on something and hit a button and the camera is now over there. And that was pretty cool.
That's cool. Speaking of Arduino, I need to take your Arduino for Makers course. I think, I know we didn't hit on this, but I really think there's an opportunity for CNCers, people that run CNCs, to add electronics to their projects. I think that opens up just a massive world of it would just take your projects to the next level.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, even if it's just from a decor perspective, if you're doing some really cool thing and you can add a little bit of interactivity to it, whether it's turning on some lights or, having something spin or something, those are really easy functions to do, but they level up the product and the project significantly. So
yeah, cool. All right, what do we got here? Ron says, Bob, what is the one project that you have made that you are most proud of?
I mean, probably R2-D2. That was just like a lifelong, how cool would it be to have an R2-D2? And for most of my life, that was a completely unrealistic. I just didn't know that people actually made them. It seemed like there's probably 2 of these in the world, and that's it. It was that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And then to finally dig in and kind of commit to the long-term project of that, and to step through it. Now, granted, the R2-D2 project is the work of thousands of people over the last 40 years, figuring out how to do it, making plans available, sharing information and like resources and all this stuff. So it's not like I just started from scratch and just like muscled through it. But the long-term effort and the kind of dedication to getting that done, and then stepping back from it and being like, that is R2-D2. That's not an R2-D2. That is R2-D2. Like that felt.
That's the R2-D2.
Yes.
That's cool. Cool. I don't have one as far as me, that comes to mind. I can't think of a project that there are some, but just nothing is jumping out at me right now. Yeah. Let me think about it, Ron. I'll get back to you.
I have one more. Can I say another one?
Yeah, for sure.
Since you didn't have one.
Take my spot.
So one of the first big projects I ever did in Savannah, I had a friend who grew up wanting he always wanted secret rooms and secret doors in his house and stuff, and it was just like from kids' books and stuff. He just wanted to have that, and he never had it. And so then they found out that they were pregnant. Him and his wife found out they were pregnant. And so they had this space in their attic that they had finished this attic space, and there were these kind of knee walls. And behind this knee wall was a bunch of just dead space, and there was a big dormer, so there was this big space like this that you could kind of crawl to get to. And he was like, man, can you make a secret door? I've always wanted this. I want to surprise my kid with this in a few years. Long story short, I made a bookcase built into this wall. And there was a book, Jules Verne novel, and you pull the Jules Verne novel, and this bookcase opens a secret passageway into this room. He has his kid. They spend, I think, 5 years decorating the inside of this thing. They ended up having 2 kids in this time. They decorated the inside of this thing because she was an interior designer, so they made it just unbelievable. It's like cool stuff everywhere, and it's all, just wonderland.
Mm.
And the whole thing was to surprise their kids with this thing. And so they kept waiting on this, their oldest son, to just find this book. And, he's not going to go pulling every book off the shelf and stuff.
Yeah.
And so eventually one day, my friend Josh, pulled it and opened the thing. And they had cameras set up everywhere. And so his son was up there playing and was like, why is this cabinet pulled out? And just pulled it out. And the video of this kid climbing through this tunnel and finding this amazing playroom hidden in his attic that he's lived in for 5 years or 6 years.
Wow.
Or whatever. His eyes were this big, just like, what? And so talk about being proud of having anything to do with that kind of wonder in a kid. That was awesome.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah, I have one that came to mind. I just didn't think it really lived up to it. Is so last week I didn't film this at all. Kind of my favorite projects are the ones I don't film. And I don't know why. I just enjoy it more. Maybe back to that thing of trying to make it work for other people and not just myself. And but 2 of them actually. So my son, who's 4, last week I built him a sandbox, and it's a 8 foot by 8 foot sandbox with a roof on it.
Oh.
And to see when you said the wonder on that kid's face, my son played in it for 8 hours straight. Just loved every moment of it, so that's really cool.
Awesome.
And then the other project was for Christmas. I built him a tractor bed and a full loader tractor bed.
Oh,
and it's he absolutely loves it. So those are some of my favorite ones that I haven't shared with. I don't share. Sorry. And none of them are CNC related, so I felt bad about sharing them. But I did cut the wheels on the CNC, by the way. But that's about it. But yeah, so we got one last question here, Bob. I know we're going a little long here, but let's. I think this is a good one. So our friend Browenwood, Bob, who have you have met?
Yeah.
Our friend Nick. So he says, Bob, how do you deal with burnout? And have you ever experienced it yourself? This is our last question here.
How much time do you have? You want to go for another hour? We can go for another hour.
We could literally go for another hour. So
Andy and I have talked about this a lot.
Yeah, we have, and it's real. It's real. You can be a macho man if you want and stick out your chest, but it's real. And I know several people. That have their bodies have literally given out physically from pushing through it and pushing through it. Burnout is a real thing, and I've experienced it over the last year, and I took a couple weeks off. But Bob, just kind of in a Cliff Notes version here, what do you? I know it's hard, but what? First, have you experienced it?
Yes.
How many times?
Probably 3 times, full on, I'm done kind of burnout.
Yep.
One especially a few years ago.
Yeah.
And I'll try to keep it brief. But basically, I think the overload, we expect an awful lot of ourselves when we try to compare ourselves to the best parts of everybody else. And, social media is terrible at that. But I think being a husband, a father, a business owner are all things that come with a lot of responsibility. And the thing is, when we try to do all of those things at 1,000% all the time, that's what leads to burnout. And like, you cannot be all things to all people all the time. And I found myself in a place where I was trying to be too many things and doing a bad job at all of them. And so the burnout comes in the effect of, I don't want to do all of these things because all of these things are asking too much of me. And so the way I dealt with that over a lot of work and stuff was realizing that I can't do it all the time. I don't have to do it all the time. And either I can choose for my life to be like it is right now for the rest of my time, and it's going to be terrible, and I'm just going to I'm going to be fried by the time I'm in my 50s, and I'm going to be a terrible grandfather, and I can stay right here and be unhappy, or I can decide to change the circumstances around my job and around my commitments and around all of this stuff to elevate the parts that are the most important to me. And that's easy to say when things are going pretty well. It's easy to say when you don't have a lot of debt. It's easy to say when your family life is good. But the truth of it is, I decided that I wanted more than anything to be the best father and husband I could be, and the job stuff was going to have to come after that. And if that meant going back to a corporate job because I had to, then I would. But the reality, I think, was just my mind opening up to the fact that, like, I've got to prioritize. Not everything is top priority. I've got to prioritize and start to just put my family and my own health and all that stuff first. And when those things are first, they actually make the work easier. And so through this long process of stuff, I actually do less work these days, which helps with the burnout and the overload, but it also gives me more margin in my life to be able to do things that I want to do, to invest fully in my family and to other people's families. And so burnout is terrible and it is real. But for me personally, that experience actually forced me to have to reevaluate so much about who I am and what I do and how I spend my time and where I put my money and where I put my dedication and all that stuff. So the burnout was actually the best possible thing for my future. If that helps.
Yeah. Yeah, I think what I'll say is, one way or another, either by choice or by not your choice, I think your body, our creator, will get your attention. And it's much easier to do on not easier. It's much pleasant to deal with it on your terms than having to deal with it, but not your choice, right? I would rather have the choice to deal with it than to keep going, and end up in the emergency room like one of my friends. It literally was just from burnout and from work and from stress. And so one way or another, you'll get your attention, and it has to be dealt with. So I would much rather deal with it ahead of time.
Before it's so bad that it's like catastrophic. I mean, it's
yeah. Well, cool. Well, Bob, man, I told you an hour. We're way over, but it's no big deal.
That's because I talk too much. That's all right.
It's all good. So this is it's been great. We're not done yet, though. We've got the Spindle Spin here, and so one lucky winner is going to get a spin on the Spindle Spin. So Eric, we got one last call. If you're just joining us, type hashtag #AndyBirdBuilds in the chat to be entered into our giveaway here. And we'll give you a couple seconds to put that in.
Okay, so while we give them a couple seconds, I'm going to go ahead and play the intro for the Spindle Spin. You ready?
Oh, sure. You have it now?
Yeah, I have it. Here we go. You ready? There we go. Wasn't that fun?
Nice.
Some good little like 90s,
yeah.
Saved by the Bell type music.
Hey,
Okay.
There we go. All right. So here we go. Let's pick someone's name up on screen, and they're going to get a chance to win 50% off Fusion for Makers.
If they become a loser, right?
If they lose, if they spin Bob's name, then they get 50% off Fusion for Makers. But we have a lot of other opportunities here too. So let's see what we got here. And you must be present to win. We'll give you a minute to identify yourself. And the winner, Randy S. Randy, are you here, Randy? Randy, you must be here. Say, I'm here. Congrats, Randy. Okay. Bob, I got to be very intentional with this because we've had some, the first one we ever did, we spun someone's name and they weren't here. And then when we respun they're like, I'm here. So
there he is. There he is.
Here. Randy's here. Good. We're good. All right, Randy. Picture that you're sitting next to me right here. And this is your hand. And you are going to get a spin on the Spindle Spin. All right. So here we go. Oh. What did you win? Grand prize winner. You won access to the CNC Side Hustle course. That's the first time we've had that. Congratulations, Randy. Nice. Yay. Nice.
What happens if Randy's already taken the course?
Well, then Randy, we'll deal with it later. Congrats, Randy. That's really cool. So, Randy, I'll give your name to Miranda, who's our support person, and she will get you all set up and get you access to the CNC Side Hustle. Just email her at support@andybirdbuilds.com. And only Randy is going to be a winner. So don't try to pull some like, hey, I won.
My mom calls me Randy.
My mom calls me Randy. Hey, I'm Randy. Randy, go ahead and email support@andybirdbuilds.com and just say, hey, I won the Spindle Spin. And we'll get you hooked up there. Sweet. That's awesome. Eric's sending me notes over here, like love letters on the side. Don't forget to thank our members. Yes, we got to thank our channel members here, and then we'll get some final words from Bob. But our channel members, thank you for supporting us in this way. We've got Johnny Gardner, Technotan Australia, David Mercer, Monte Jones, Aaron Newton, Earl Mahaffey, Net News Ledger, Roland Glidden, Randall Jenkins, Pineapple's still here. Pineapple won our giveaway before. Pineapple's Barbecue and Woodworking, and Bradley Custom Designs. Thank you for supporting us in this way. If you want to support the channel in this way, there's a button right below the chat. You can become a channel member, and your name can forever be written on the wall here. You can watch this afterwards, so you'll be forever on the YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support. All right, Bob, what are your final words here? Do you have any anything that comes to mind? I always say the same words, but I'm just wondering if you want to leave them with some words.
Leave them with words. I would say, I think I've told Andy this before. Focus on doing less. And that doesn't mean don't do anything. That just means do less so that your work and your life can have some margin in it, and then that is something that you can put towards other things. But if you keep yourself busy all the time, if you try to do too much, you don't have anything left. So.
Yeah, that's great advice. Bob has given this to me over and over again, and I'm so thankful, Bob, for your mentorship. Really, I am. And when I took that break, I took a break back in, I don't know, March or something, basically. And I tried to take 2 weeks off. It's really hard. It's really hard. And I tried to do 3 things every day. I tried to read, I tried to write, and I tried to walk. And those I filled my day. I know it sounds really, really boring, but let me tell you, the clarity and the new ideas, the inspiration, the excitement returned. And like you get to a point sometimes where that's exactly what you need. You need a perspective change, and you need to zoom out, and exactly what you're looking for, it can be found, in those quiet times. And I know that seems really boring and basic, but let me tell you, it is very, very worth it. Time well spent. Read, write, and walk. Basic things.
Without your phone.
Without your phone.
Without your phone.
Yeah, without your phone. It's tough to do for sure. But
yeah.
Bob, thank you so much for being here. And it's always great talking to you. And thank you for your guidance, and thank you for your inspiration to the maker community as a whole. You've inspired a whole generation of makers. So thank you for saying no. I'm not doing craft fairs and making videos. So I appreciate that. So now it's your turn, viewer, to go fire up that CNC or fire up that hammer or that miter saw or whatever it may be. Go fire it up, head out to the shop, and make something you're proud of. We'll see you next time.